5 through 9 says, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates." That's the Old Testament. And then again in Deuteronomy 11, "You shall teach them to your children, talking of them when you are sitting in your house, and when you're walking by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise." And then we move into Proverbs. We read in chapter 22 that a good name is to be chosen rather than great riches, and favor is better than silver or gold. "The rich and the poor meet together. The Lord is the maker of them all. The prudent sees danger and hides himself, but the simple go on and suffer for it," giving you a little context here. "The reward for humility and the fear of the Lord is riches and honor and life. Thorns and snares are in the way of the crooked. Whoever guards his soul will keep far from them. Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he does not depart from it." So we see the exhortation to be prudent, to see the danger. We see that thorns and snares are in the way of the crooked, but whoever guards his soul will keep far from them. And then training up the children in the way that they should go. Even when they're old, they won't depart from it. And then in Ephesians, Paul writes, "Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord." So here I see the foundation for this is found in the Old Testament in Deuteronomy and God's law for Israel. We see it in the Proverbs, in the wisdom literature, and again I see it in Ephesians, in Paul's epistle. So Old Testament wisdom literature, Old Testament law, wisdom literature, and epistle. There's something that's clear to me throughout the Bible, that I've got a responsibility to train my children in the ways of God, to pass along these biblical principles, this worldview where God is really at the center. God is the creator. He's established these principles that we should follow to really achieve our ultimate purpose in life. And so that's one question that I have ultimately, is how do I improve in my role as a father? How do I train up my children in the way they should go? How do I teach them diligently about the commandments of God? And how do I do that more effectively? That's a question I think that I can continually research, that I can think of, okay, what are solutions? How do I improve? Implement those. What were the results? And take that through the action research process. The other one is communicating the gospel. I have a burden to witness to my neighbors and my community, but also just as I live, be a living testimony of God's work in my life. Though I may not be sharing the gospel all the time, I'm always, in some ways, sharing it or reflecting it, or should be, in my actions. And so I want to strive to model how Christ preached the gospel. The results are not mine. I can't make people believe, but I'm called, as we all are as Christians, to make disciples of all nations. And Luke writes in Luke 16:10, "One who is faithful in very little is also faithful in much, and one who is dishonest in very little is also dishonest in much." And then in 1 Thessalonians, Paul writes that "Rejoice always, pray without ceasing, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you." I read these because it's faithful in the little things. It's rejoicing always, being in prayer, and giving thanks. This is God's will for me. So going back to the whole issue of creation and my role, or the role, ultimate purpose of man, to glorify God, to worship Him, we have these little things that I'm to do daily. So how do I improve on the little things? Because if I'm faithful in the little things, in rejoicing, in being faithful in prayer, I'll be faithful in much. And I think the action research process, tying that together with the Applied Biblical Studies program now, we see that focusing on these little things, these little areas, how can I improve? How can I be a more faithful witness? How can I pass along biblical principles to my children and train them in the ways of God? As I apply this action research program, the action research process, in connection with the lessons I've already learned, the knowledge I've learned from the Applied Biblical Studies program, and then the tools of biblical interpretation, to discern more biblical principles. As I work through that action research process, I think that it will help me to live in a way that pleases God, and as Matthew writes in Matthew 6:19, store more treasure in heaven. So thank you.